So now what? Save the world?
Anyone could be one of them.
Controller.
Trust no one.
Welcome to Thoughtspeak, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of K.A. Applegate's 1996 book series, Animorphs. My name is Coleman.
And my name's Mitchell. And today we are bringing you a very special book because it is one that neither of us had read before. And
Definitely.
Also another filler book. However, it's a little bit different. We're happy to have read this one.
Shush, spoiling our reviews, like we always do, but still.
I'm happy, and if I know it, I'm going to clap my hands.
I would say that the special thing about this book is how not special it is. There's no reason this book should have been anything to talk about.
It's a pretty mundane adventure, yeah.
Yeah, but we have quite a bit to say, so if you're ready and you've got your book 28 in hand, we're going to jump right in. Because we're excited about this book. We're excited to be back, like 2 weeks after the last episode?
Something like that. I stopped keeping track.
We try not to talk about it anymore. But we're excited to put these out and get back into the series. And I'm loving the energy, is what I'm saying. We're
on a Thoughtspeak train, and this train it's staying on the tracks, and it's accelerating at an alarming pace.
You should be alarmed if you're a regular listener. Just don't know what the fear is coming from or why it's there, but it just should hang over you.
I am hella excited to get through not only this book, but some of the upcoming books. And not only that, my book has previews for Megamorphs number 3 already. So, holy crap, I didn't realize we were so close to reading that. And we're coming up close to Visor.
Oh, we're close to Visor? I didn't know that.
In the next 5 or 10 books, I'll say. But we're pretty dang close.
I was just telling my wife last night that I wish we were closer to the Olympus Chronicles, but I never realized that book comes right before the last book.
Right, exactly. Oh, also just want to say about the ads in the back of the book, I've got the home video invasion ad.
Yep.
for the VHS special collector's edition featuring exclusive never before seen footage. I have a feeling it was never before seen for a very good reason. But you could find that footage on the VHS tape part 1, The Invasion Begins. Oh boy, that went nowhere. Without further ado though, we're talking book 28, The Experiment. Coleman, read the back, would you?
Sure. The Yeerks have decided to try a little experiment. Hey, it's the title of the book. They've decided that if they can develop a way to make people more willing to be infested, they can speed up Earth's invasion. So, the Yeerks try to invent a substance that will take away the human ability to make a decision, a substance that will eliminate free will. Now the Animorphs and Axe are not only faced with trying to slow down the Yeerks' invasion, but they also have to put an end to the genetic testing on a small group of humans. This time, there's only one chance to stop the Yeerks, and if anything goes wrong, it's all over. Now,
I've got problems.
I'm really glad I didn't read this before I read the book, because it just spoils the hell out of the twist.
I've got problems with the way this book is marketed, for sure, and I think I've read in some of the discussions, the AMAs with K.A. Applegate online, they have both alluded to the fact that they had original ideas for this story, and they really had to be tapered in the end. And just the way that this thing was marketed, with the description on the back, the fact that is a good twist in the end, and it's just I'm noticing a recurring marketing theme here where they have to describe just the smallest little snippet of the book. They have to give you like the I don't know, I guess you'd call it like the icing, to get you to bait you into reading these things. I thought they could have very easily went with Axe morphing a chimpanzee on the front cover. But no, they went with cow. And the slaughterhouse scene, I mean, we'll talk about. But first we're going to talk about this cover.
Have you, real quick, you've heard something about how they were tapered? Like they were stopped from writing it a certain way, or?
Oh, yeah. Katherine has talked about how, of course, she wanted to have a stronger vegetarian message. And I'm sure that, had the Applegates been allowed to do whatever they wanted to do, that slaughterhouse scene could have gone so much more vividly and horrific. But I think just Scholastic, being as big a company as it is and having to market these books towards a certain audience, couldn't allow them to have that full vegetarian kind of message. And
I mean, that's going to get into our review a little bit, but personally, I like the balance it took. I like how it didn't go full on into that message.
No, they used the slaughterhouse, I thought, very effectively. They did what they needed to do there. The scene with Axe literally being dragged as a cow to slaughter was powerful enough.
How scared Axe got.
Oh, exactly. It was powerful as it was. They didn't need to show any more, however much they could have.
I mean, they literally talked about how they were slipping on entrails when they were running. I mean,
yeah. Oh, it
had some powerful imagery.
Absolutely. Not saying it didn't. But again, I think it was obviously marketed towards children a little bit. And for that, they weren't able to show probably a lot more horrors.
Yeah, I can see that.
However,
so let's get to the cover.
The cover's not bad as far as covers go. It's actually very bright and kind of
I wonder why they
cheerful.
went for a rainbow look.
Well, I don't know. It's more of a cheerful book. It's about humans giving up their free will. There's so much symbolism, by the way, in this book that you know.
Absolutely. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but just the fact that the book but the first thing they do is go into a room locked with chimpanzees and Axe questioning whether they're sentient or not, and the book ends walking into a room with caged humans. I mean, this is a smart book. This is a very smart book.
I wonder how much of that was just coincidence and hindsight.
No, I think
how much of it was purposefully written.
I think that was very in your face, sending a message. That was the point of the book. They said they wanted a vegetarian message. That's not what I got out of this book. What I got out of this message is, look how we're treating things that aren't that different than ourselves.
Well, yeah, that's definitely in there.
In that situation?
Absolutely,
yeah.
That's a message in this book, and that's why it's one of the best freaking filler books I can imagine, because we get such strong character, not even development necessarily, but just this is like one of the strongest we've seen our characters so far.
I'm gonna cut you off right there.
Yeah, cut me, bro. Cut me.
I am mildly offended by the term for this book to call it one of the best filler books. In my mind, this is one of the best books we've read so far.
Oh my gosh. Period. Spoil your review, why don't you? I know. Because you're the one who's always obsessed with spoiling the review.
Yeah. We were already kind of...
You want to build these damn shows into like a drama suspense thing where we keep the readers wondering what we're going to say about these books. But I think most of our listeners aren't idiots, and they know the books that we're reading, and they know the general reputation. I do think we throw some surprise curveballs out there every now and then, but...
well, see, that makes me mad, because if this book has a general reputation, I mean, I'm not deep into the, RAF forums or some of the darker parts of the internet that have to do with Animorph fandom. But I don't know of this book as having a reputation.
No, and you know why? I think this is one book that the fandom kind of overlooks. Like when people ask, "Hey, what books do I need to read that are essential to the plot?" Yeah, the most this book will get is a little blurb that says, "Oh, it's a fun Axe book," where they debate, morals and ethics or whatever.
And I could see someone just saying, "Oh, it's another hippie book," where it's just trying to teach you something.
Exactly,
but
this really, really encapsulates a lot of what we love about this series as a whole. Review spoils, I guess. Review spoiled. Now you don't know what number I'm giving it.
Yeah, and you know what number I'm giving it, but I don't
know. I'm going to try and change your mind now that I know. You told me in advance. And in our phone call before we recorded, you told me what number you're giving this.
Don't spoil that now.
I'm changing your mind.
Okay, we'll see. So let's start with the inside of the cover real quick.
I love the inside cover of this one. It's another scene from the book.
I don't remember Cassie laughing at them as cows.
No, this was a very tense scene in the book, and they did kind of make it look very comical here. And
Also,
they're definitely not standing on the kind of ground they were standing on in the book.
Yeah, and Tobias was one of the cows, so he's just flying overhead for some reason.
That's other Hawk. Hockey. Hockey.
The team mascot.
He's the one that is there when Tobias is not. Duh. So it looks like going into the book. Oh well, did you have more to say on that picture?
No. It's I liked it for actually being a scene from the book. It's just strange how they put it together. And also, they picked, I know they're real cows, but they picked very fake-looking cows.
I know. It looks like very, very photoshopped. Like, there's, probably 150 different layers on this thing or more.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, we can jump into the actual.
Well, I was just going to say that in the beginning, I believe the author wishes to thank the person who ghostwrit the book for them, which in this case is Amy Garver. Or Garvey. Amy Garvey.
Oh,
for her help in preparing the manuscript.
Is that what it says?
Yeah. Yep. Right opposite the chapter 1.
The author wishes to thank Amy Garvey for her help in preparing this manuscript. Okay. Well, chalk her up as one of the better ghostwriters.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll see that. We'll see. We'll see what comes of her.
Are you just deciding to...
I reserve judgment
negative on this book just to teach me something.
I reserve judgment until I see her next work. I'm not going to say it's fantastic right off the bat. Anyway.
Yeah. Maybe she worked extra hard on this one. Or maybe Kay Applegate did more work on this one than other ones. I don't know.
Who knows? I just think that whoever's writing this gets to have the most amount of fun writing about humanity from an alien's perspective. Because holy shit, I mean, everything Axe says, thinks, does is just, it's dynamite. I mean, I love Axe. I love reading Axe. And in all the other books, I feel like Axe really, unfortunately, gets kind of sidelined to this stereotype, okay, of the strange foreigner, right? Yeah. I mean, we've seen this character in sitcoms. He's the strange foreigner who is, for some reason more advanced or smarter than the other guys, but his odd behavior wouldn't lead you to think that. But once you get inside Axe's mind and he becomes more of this curious outsider and you see him as an actual teen, you see him as a kid, it's just so much better. I mean, these first 2 chapters, okay, which are really just him sitting around talking about his scoop, his home life and stuff. These first 10 pages are a more entertaining and fascinating read than that entire previous book we just read. If you have the opportunity to read the entire last book, the Cassie or the Rachel Squid book, or this first 2 chapters, read these. You'll have more fun.
And I think that Axe in this book, he has all the stereotypical things of his character that he's had in every one of his books so far. But I think they're handled better. I think they're more subtle. I think they're more coming from a place of him just trying to figure things out instead of it being like, oh, I'm out of control of my taste buds. Oh, I'm out of... those things are still referenced, but
Well,
talking about
I would
TV.
call it character development for Axe because, yeah, like you said, he has been these cliches, these walking, talking cliches, and then he's of course been the one that they can look to and go, explain this, and he does, you know?
Yeah, I love that moment in this book where he explains something, and is it Cassie who says, "I actually understood that one."
Yeah, what is happening to me?
Yeah, and Axe is like, oh, he's really proud of himself for bringing himself down to their level.
Yeah, he congratulates himself a little there. This is the first, I believe this is the first instance we've heard him talk about his scoop in such great detail.
That's what I was wondering, because it sounds, I thought there was a book where he builds it. That's what I assumed was in one of the ghost-written books.
Yeah,
I missed.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it appears to be. This is the case. We're just introduced to his scoop, and I love that. I just got to read the few things that he has in his scoop. A world almanac that my friends had given me, a photograph of a delicious cinnamon bun, some human clothing, and one other thing only recently acquired. One important thing that has changed my life, a television. And this sets up a lot of the gags in this book.
Just the humanitarian introspection of this book is taken from the TV and what we watch and what he's seen from an outside perspective.
And you know what?
Incredibly interesting.
I would argue that even that concept of this character, this cliche of the confused foreigner trying to mimic, things he sees on American TV or whatever, is something that has been done before. But
like in our last presidential campaign.
Oh, you. This takes it to a different level because it's a literal alien trying to blend in with Earth culture. And unfortunately, I don't know why nobody really sits him down and helps him with this. I mean, I guess he does flip through TV a lot, but for whatever reason, Axe has decided to mimic most of his behavior in this book off of the crap that he sees on daytime soap operas.
Man, I am disappointed in the Animorphs fandom, and specifically you fan fiction writers, because everything I've read about you is trying to get Tobias and Marco to hook up, but where are the fan fictions that are Tobias and Axe hanging out watching soaps? That is so perfect.
It practically writes itself.
I never realized I wanted or needed in my life until I read this book. That is perfect for their relationship.
Now, wait a minute here. If anybody were to write a fan fiction about Tobias and Axe sitting around, specifically discussing soap operas and like overdramatic relationships, at some point they'd have to write in Marco popping in, and then things get like soap opera-y with him and Tobias. And then Jake appears. Yeah, Jake, because I haven't forgotten about my good buddy Coleman's dream ship of Tobias Jake Tobijo.
Hey, that's been waiting in the wings since, and pun intended, since book one, when Tobias was living in Jake's cupboard in his attic.
When Coleman first fantasized.
I want to read that book. But no, so I mean, I could just picture, just because of this whole scene, I just picture like Tobias and Axe as like 70-year-old women hanging out. Their husbands are gone. They're just watching their soaps and just having a grand old time.
Yeah, for whatever reason. And, I never got this as a kid reading these books, and I don't get it as an adult now. Why weren't they watching Power Rangers? Or why weren't they watching something else a little bit more marketable to kids? I'm saying this is a common misconception that the media has in thinking that people of this age give a crap about soap operas. I'm going to make a bold statement here, but
it isn't a lot of things.
I didn't give a shingle about soap operas back in the day because they were boring stories about adults having way over dramatic reactions to relationship drama.
Affairs.
I was way more into Power Rangers, transforming and fighting monsters and stuff.
I don't think soaps were ever supposed to be a thing for kids, or I don't think there was even a perception of that. But what I do know is that I think in the 90s, a lot of soaps got bigger than they'd ever gotten before and were really popular. So the idea was funny that kids would be watching soap operas, and that's why it's in so many different.
Okay, so
Animorphs
it's
multiple
clearly
times.
a parody of reality in
Yeah.
in that it's obvious that soap operas are stupid, but
Although
it's
I
funny
do
that they're
know-
interested.
I do know girls who watched soap operas with their moms growing up. That's a
Really?
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That strikes me as odd because I thought soap operas are really just a lot of over dramatic acting that leads up to either sex and or violence. Stuff that kids normally wouldn't want to talk about or tell them about. It's just funny how Tobias's reaction is like, because Axe is like, let me read the section for you. In fact, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, he said, well, okay, go ahead.
Quit cutting me off. It's called kissing, Axeman. Just like yesterday and the day before. Kissing. Everyone does it. Of course, you need lips. I know what it is called, and the role of lips is self-evident. I simply do not know why it is performed. Ah, well, Tobias rearranges his wings noisily. It's definitely got a purpose. By the way, Marco's heading this way. And this is another cool moment from the book. They Tobias and Axe arguing about who spotted Marco first approaching. Like, it just shows that they're both making progress,
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And like, you're right, the book and multiple other books have kind of like skipped around sexual scenarios or explaining things. And they even do it later in this book when they talk about being neutered, and Marco crosses his legs.
Oh, yeah,
And it's just
absolutely.
a little joke thrown in there, not really pointedly, but you can pick it up if you're older or you know what you're talking about. And it's strange with Axe. Sometimes they talk about it, and I think they're very clear in what they're talking about. And it's like Andalites don't reproduce. It's like, or they must do it weird because he misses a lot of those innuendos.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the idea of reproducing should be familiar with him.
Him confusing the cow for the bull for the first time. I mean, they didn't do anything necessarily dirty with it, but he obviously mistook the two.
Yeah.
So there's some confusion there. You're right. And they do gloss over it very much. If this came back as a young adult series, believe me, there'd be some Andalite nookie going on.
Really? That's news to me. I don't know why that would happen.
Oh yeah, it's happening. It's happening, Coleman.
Well, no, the way young adult series are written nowadays, it would honestly be like an Andalite who's in love with a human, who's in love with a Yerk, but not a Yerk controller like the Yerk slug itself in its normal body. So
that sounds delightful to me. Throw in a vampire.
Join up with you and split into 1,000 kids.
I want the Animorphs to start morphing werewolves. Like, they have to morph a person who is a werewolf, so they have to morph into a human body and then wait around for a full moon to get the werewolf effect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. More convoluted morphs, please.
No, I will say something that this book does that's really cool, though, and I would say even, like, kind of deepens the whole lore of morphing, like the morph lore. Hashtag morph lore. Because they acquire the bulls and they get the steers, or they acquire the steers and they get the bulls.
Look, don't mess with the bull unless you're
Don't mess with the bull unless you're prepared for the steer
That's what we say here in
demorph
Texas.
and then acquire a new bull. Wait a minute.
This
it's
book
very
really hit home to
convoluted.
me, being a Texan, and there just being cows everywhere.
I think they traveled to Texas specifically for this book.
No, they didn't.
No, it just exists as part of the fictional,
there's
never-ending
slaughterhouses
supply of territory
Places.
and terrain
Well,
and
they
the
probably
locations
went-
for these kids
I mean,
to visit.
With the bird morphs, they can cover a lot of ground around them. So it's not that crazy to think in Northern California, where there is a ton of farmland. It's usually grape and wineries, but there's a lot of farmland up there, and there are cows. And California's known for their cow exports and cheese and
Sure.
stuff, too.
Nothing against the good people of California.
So you got a lot against them.
I think you got a lot of neat locales. Good on ya.
I think you're just jealous of their recent laws passed.
I don't know what you're referring to, though I do agree with you.
Cow laws.
All the laws recently. I mean, some of them are good. Man, we're not talking laws here. God, unless they're like Andalite laws, which I would love to debate with you.
Oh, that'd be great. I would love to debate Andalite law and politics.
Let's do an entire episode where we just set up like our ideal, like what an Andalite society would probably be.
Well, look, their whole oligarchy / monarchy system is just, and it's just weird.
It's just waiting to collapse in on itself.
Way too much power. Yeah. I
would love to do a book about like a group of Andalite rebels, so to speak, or extremists, but you know, they're just they're free thinkers.
I want to read a book where a young Andalite tricks his society into giving him princehood, and then him not knowing what to do with it or how to be a prince. That'd be a really good book.
And then proceeds to screw everything up.
Yeah, because he's suddenly a leader. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's Prince Uximala.
Dude, it would be awesome, though, if he was like, if it turned out the entire time he was taking advice from, like, Yerk that was in, like, the body of what would be equivalent of, like, a alien mouse or something. Mm-hmm. But he was just carried around with him the whole time.
You're basically wanting to make the Animorphs versions of Ratatouille.
I would love that. I want that book.
Yeah. There's so many books that could be written after Andalites and humans become allied.
Well, the fact of the matter is, yeah, as long as it's written from the point of view, like this book is, from an alien looking at human society, it's so awesome. We get so many references here, by the way, to just all kinds of good pop culture references. Buffy, Party of Five, Cops, South Park, TV Guide, which I don't even know if it exists in print format anymore. I'm sure it must.
Axe breaks down The Simpsons and is trying to question it.
Exactly. Oh my God, Simpson, and more cinnamon buns than you can shake an Andalite stick at.
I do think that whenever, I'm going to say whenever, because I do think it's going to happen eventually. Whenever they do reboot the series or continue it, they do need to keep how many current pop culture references there are. I think that's important to the series and part of its DNA.
I don't know. I don't know if I would like to see those recurring jokes and cliches. I'm sorry to say. I don't want to see them relying on old things. I mean, it's great to see them enjoy a cinnamon bun once.
Not old ones. I'm saying new ones, like an adult Marco joking about singing or meeting Ariana Grande. There you go. Modernized. Good to go.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's that could be done. I would love to see Marco want to be on Conan O'Brien, mm-hmm. or hell, have him want to be on Stephen Colbert. It would be great as well.
Well, I mean,
I just love. I mean, we're not even through talking about really the introduction, basically, of this book, where just it's everybody hanging out. But I do want to point out that every time Marco enters a scene, Tobias has to leave. Which, if you want to read more into it, definitely feeds into the whole Tobias doesn't really like Marco, and there's that love triangle with Rachel kind of thing going. If you want to read into that, you could take it that way.
I do think Tobias doesn't like Marco. I think there is that underground animosity there. I don't think it has anything to do with Rachel, although
No, and as soon as Marco shows up, one of his first things to say after questioning why he's there, what he's doing out of school, teacher conference, by the way, he says, "Well, I'm hungry. I got to go find a mouse," and just dips. So that's kind of funny too.
Well, yeah, I think just this whole Marco Tobias thing. I think obviously they respect each other, or Tobias respects him because they're Animorphs and they've saved each other and all this stuff. But honestly, I don't think Tobias has been bullied his entire life, and I think he just sees Marco as another bully. Marco's given him some hard time, some really, even in his first few books, Marco's like mean, really dark and mean.
There were times, yeah, and I guess I could see what you mean there about how he does see Marco as a type of bully that he's glad to be allied with, but at the same time he still doesn't necessarily want to hang out with.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very cool. You get so much like just not real character building, but the same stuff that we love about these characters. We just get more of it.
Yeah, and Marco, especially, we're talking about his character. In this book specifically, I mean, they've touched on the fact that he can be a really dark person, and he can be a really blunt person. I don't think we've seen it to the way that I want it and how I see Marco until this book, which I've never read before. When he's talking to Cassie later, he is straight to the point. And his role is horrible
to be
to her.
His role is to be the questioner of the team and the voice of not necessarily reason, but mostly just not wanting to die. That's what he is. He's the voice of we're gonna do the thing that makes us not die, and we're definitely putting ourselves above everything else, including animals and family members.
I'm talking about
unless the family member is my mom.
Yeah. I'm not talking about necessarily when they're like trying to get out of the lab or either lab and stuff like that, but when they're on their way to the chimps or to get the truck or whatever. Marco has a great conversation with Cassie where he's like, "Here it comes. I've been waiting for you to bring this tree hugging crap up. Go ahead. We're ready to patch it, baby." Like,
yeah,
he's
exactly.
He's very cruel to her about that, and I think it comes from a place of reality. Like that's. We as readers are sick of hearing Cassie talk about that stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
We agree with it.
They know it's coming. The fact is, they know that they can't do a mission like this one without Cassie having to say something about the humanitarian aspect of it. And Marco is very much the voice of the readers and voice of the team, frankly, because he knows none of them are going to ask her about it. So instead of waiting for Cassie to be Cassie on her own and being surprised by it, he demands flat out, like, "Okay, tree hugger, what do you got to say about all this?"
Yeah, and it sounds like
I don't want to be surprised by you.
It sounds like we're going into our normal Cassie rant that you've heard on this show multiple times, but I will say
I don't think it does.
I think it sounds a little bit like that. To people who are watching out for it and don't like that part of our show already, I think they thought we were about to. But I will say that this book made me really, really like Cassie as a character for multiple reasons that we'll get into later. But let's get through the actual talking about the book, because we've done a lot of talking and very little bit has been about the book.
No, we have to talk about how they walk up to the mall and then they're approached by a parked car.
A FedEx truck.
Okay, fine. FedEx, okay, you want to split hairs with me.
Well, Marco even makes a joke about it. He's like, "Oh, did we get the copyright for this?" Like, this book's incredibly meta.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And you know what? I really liked how when they decide to go to the mall, Marco's like, "Well, maybe we'll meet Jake there," which, is a very typical thing that you would expect to happen in the book. It's like he's calling it out. But instead...
he's calling out the last book almost. The last book was just like, "Oh, let's go to the mall. Hey, all of our friends and fellow Animorphs and Eric are here."
Yeah, I mean, it happens every time. And in fact, in this very book, they immediately run into Eric.
Which I could have used a book without Eric. I mean, they've been doing the Eric. They've been going back to Eric well.
Oh yeah, they've been, and they're not really. This is the problem with it, is they're not flushing his character out as much as they could be or should be. They're just using it as almost like a GTA style. Here's your next mission.
But I think this was literally a joke as well. This is how smart I believe this book is. I think by making his hologram, because there's no reason he would be a FedEx truck. He could just walk up to them as Eric. I think they're literally joking about the fact that he is a delivery system for plots.
Oh,
that's why he's
very,
a FedEx
very
truck. Clever
observation, Coleman. And I'm inclined to agree with you because now that I think about it in that way, yeah, it does fit. It seems very much like a commentary on, okay, we've got a character who obviously just shows up when it's convenient to deliver missions to these characters. So here's a humorous way that could happen and still be somewhat fresh. And now I look at it quite differently and I appreciate it a little bit more.
You're welcome.
No, screw you. You're changing your review. I'm bringing you down or
I'm
up,
bringing you-
depending on whatever the listener thinks your overall rating is going to be.
I'm bringing you up at this point.
You're getting me up.
Yeah, we get Eric. I like that we got this mission from Eric, and then he's gone. They don't try to shove him into the rest of the book, so that's nice. He doesn't save them at the end, which is great.
That's true. He literally just FedExed their mission to him, and it was very nice.
Priority.
But he gives them like the teaser that you would imagine from the back of the book, where he tells them something's going on at these two different locales. Okay, you got two different places to check out. It's like a choose your own adventure. For going to the laboratory, flip to page 53. For going to the meat slaughter industry place, flip to hell, because that's where it's located.
I like that he messed up. Like, they're like, hey, they actually bought this like a year ago. We should have known about this, but this is what we have now.
Yeah, it was a nice little added touch, a nice little detail that they did flesh it out a little bit. Instead of him being like, here's the latest scoop hot off the press. Here's the mission, boys. They're like, we've been working on this shit. And yeah, they gave it a nice little backstory, sure.
Yeah. So they decide to check out, I don't remember them giving a reason for why, but they decide to go to the lab first.
I think they said it was going to be easier or something.
It's in the city, yeah. So they then do a big scouting mission, or at least while they're at school, Tobias and Axe do a big scouting mission to see if there's a way in, and they determine that there's this huge shield over this invisible shield covering the whole facility, and the only way in is through the security guard gate at the front. And lucky for them, there are regular chimpanzee deliveries to the front gate that they might be able to use as a way in.
Yeah, so this all kind of results in this sort of I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this as a mission, because it's kind of different from other things they've done in the past. I think their attempts to infiltrate places have been a little bit more sneaky in the past, I guess. This mission involved them literally breaking into a moving vehicle in full sight of public, of people.
Anyone driving on the road could have been a Yerk.
And they saw people in the vehicle behind them, obviously saw them doing this, and they sneak inside the vehicle and release the chimpanzees, which is where we get this great debate with Cassie, and it's where we get another great dialogue with Axe as he starts to consider if these creatures are sentient or not.
The whole Axe struggling with the sentience of the apes is really interesting to me, because he's different than the Animorphs and the humans in the sense that, we've got this planet and that's it. And we know where our place is on this planet and the animals around us. Axe comes from a universe where, he doesn't come from a different universe, but he comes from a mindset of there being aliens over here and aliens over here, and everybody has different levels of intelligence, and this one's sentient, this one's not. Like, it really puts into perspective how we, because we're the dominant species on this planet, how little we think of everything else around us.
Yeah, oh yeah, very much so, exactly. And some of the things he says upon seeing some of the chimpanzees later at their arrival at the lab are really hard-hitting as well.
I'm going to bring Star Trek into this, because why not?
I love it. That Michael Grant would appreciate that.
I think he would. We have created a television show where it is incredibly important to every character in the television show, Star Trek, that there is this thing called the Prime Directive. It is the number one rule of the universe in Star Trek, and something you don't break. And it's
don't affect other alien species.
If you come across an alien species that is less developed or hasn't created a warp drive, you cannot interact with them and mess with their development. So in a TV show created by Gene Roddenberry and various other producers, we have mastered the concept of how we should, going out into space, how we should treat any alien life forms we come across that aren't, that are lower than us but still sentient. But we can't make that happen on our own planet, because I think at this point we've pretty much confirmed that whales, elephants, parrots, certain types of apes and monkeys. These are they're lower than us. They're in intelligence and capability, but they're not that different.
Well, okay, here's the thing,
we have
though.
No prime directive for our own planet.
We are very hypocritical in that we have set this bar of sentience at where we're at. We say anything that's not as intelligent as us, like we can treat how we treat the chimpanzees or dolphins, whales, whatever.
That's not
we'll give you.
true. It's not like anybody cares about them, but the scientific community, as we've seen, no one cares what they have to say. But the scientific community has set the bar at being able to recognize oneself as a self. If an animal can recognize itself in a mirror, if it can interact with itself, knowing that it's looking at itself and that it is a thing, then it's considered sentient.
Yeah, and that's
multiple species have passed that.
Startling amount of species that we still treat like shit.
I just want a prime directive for Earth. Is all.
Hey, I would love that, but unfortunately, like this book, we can't quite come to a consensus, and it's going to be a big, broad, overhanging question of morality and ethics, I guess.
But I thought that was an incredibly interesting subplot of this book. I mean, to throw that in there and it not even be like the main struggle or moral question of the book, I mean, that's nice. It's nice to have that floating in the background. Also, I will say that this scene on top of the truck and everything, it felt like a Megamorph scene. Like an action-packed, daring, not escape, but break-in.
I don't know. It felt kind of like a Tom Cruise-esque, like sneaking Mission Impossible kind of thing.
It was always interesting, at least, and it was layered with this questioning sentience idea. So I approve of it.
I'll give it this. Okay, we have seen some pretty wacky scenarios come out of the last couple of books. This was very much like a very down-to-earth action scene, taking a very realistic situation, like moving around on top of a vehicle, trying to sneak into something, and it was very realistic in its portrayal. And we don't often get to see the kids in what I would call like real danger. They're often in fantasy danger, and it's that's interesting. Sure.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you're right. Their fantasy danger is, sure, they're in a battle with a bunch of aliens, or they're trying to get out of this facility that's going to explode or something. That's things where it's like, oh, I hope they get out for the plot of this book and they can move forward. But this kind of danger is like you can even though it's an action movie scene basically, you can imagine slipping off a moving vehicle and getting hit by a car. That's scary. That's real life scary. So
yeah, totally. And they have to like form a chain to hold everybody on. And they actually went into a little bit of they took into account, how Axe has a goofy centaur body trying to stand on top of a truck, and how it wouldn't really work out. I also feel like they're being a lot more liberal with Axe wandering around in public and people seeing him.
They are. But I liked the little moment they threw in when they're on top of the truck and they're going through that tunnel, because they did at least try to do it during they were in the tunnel so that Axe wouldn't be seen that well.
Yeah, they had some strategy to it.
Yeah, but I do like that that Axe was, when he was in this scene, the book stopped the action for a second just to talk that he, bringing us back to the Andalite feeling of claustrophobia of being indoors, like him on top of this truck and not having that much space to the ceiling, like he had to calm himself down.
Yeah, that's a very good point. There are like unknown challenges that Axe faces because of who he is and his background.
It's personal details like that make something that we both agreed is kind of dumb. The idea that this idea they come up with to get into this car, by throwing in those personal details, it makes it more exciting, and there's a little bit of suspense there.
Yeah, it also makes it a little bit more real, Instead of just the generic action sequence where our characters flawlessly sneak into this truck, it adds they explain how they feel about it, and that's what makes it work.
So let's move ahead, because we are, oh my gosh, we're 49 minutes in, dude.
Holy crap. Well, when they get inside the lab, I will say I was a little disappointed because nothing really happens inside the lab aside from an escape from Visitor 3 scene here. I will say there was one of the best scenes we've got in any of these books, by far. You know which one it was? No, you gotta know. Everybody hurling crap at Visitor 3 is one of the greatest scenes. I need to see that played out on screen. Cartoon, live action, whatever. I want to see monkeys crapping on Visitor 3.
But no, okay, so I think this scene is necessary and important because it breaks up the structure of the book. Like we were talking about how Animorph books are becoming more predictable in their structure overall. I think this one does break it up where they have like this mini mission before their main mission. I know a lot of times they have to have like a mission where they go get their morphs for the main mission, but the fact that they didn't know which facility to go to and they ended up going to this one first, I liked that for just breaking up the action of the book and the pacing. But also think this scene is great for two reasons. What it does for Cassie and her development as a character, and B, setting up the ending with the humans in cages and all of that. I think it was great to have that juxtaposition with this scene, with a bunch of chimps and apes who are being talked about as not that different from us being in cages. The whole book's trying to say what we do to chimps is what Yerks would do to humans. It's supposed to show that it's us as the bad guys. But
I'm sure a lot of that went way over many people's heads, especially a lot of the younger kids that read this.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that juxtaposition makes this book really, really great. And what's even better about the scene is what it does for Cassie's character. Because Marco is so right when they're talking about this chimp lab. And on the way to it and leaving it, Marco just being really cruel and straightforward with Cassie. I think it makes her character more interesting, and it's amazing.
Well, he gets even crueler at the end scene, too.
He does. But him calling her out for being a hypocrite. Yeah, you'll save animals and you'll do this unless you want to do this other thing that, you think is justifiable or whatever. Like, he really calls her out on the fact that she is a hypocrite because she's a kid. She's got good intentions. She's got morals that we can all stand behind. But the Cassie that we've been complaining about this entire series and the Cassie in this book is incredibly interesting because she is self-involved. She's putting her own priorities ahead what she thinks she believes in this book multiple times. And the fact that Marco calls her out on it is just very introspective for a book series. And more so, this is a smart book series. The whole reason we're doing this stupid podcast is because we believe this book series is important and well written and has some things to say. This book identifies that, and it's not even from the author of the series. I think it nails it. And Marco's character and Cassie's character, the other characters I feel, besides Axe, are a little background in this book. Rachel doesn't really do much. Jake's not super important to it.
Yeah, not really. I think they even deliberately disobey one of his orders at one point.
Yeah, he's like, I thought I was the leader here.
Yeah.
But Cassie and Marco's interactions, I thought it was character developed from both of them and pushing them towards the characters we love at the end of the series. Because, at the end of the series, Cassie is 100% a hypocrite, and Marco is the reason they win the war. You can fight with me all day on those 2 points, but I believe them wholly. So, anyway, but that's why I love this scene. I'm glad it's in there.
I concur with you. All that stuff taken into consideration. I don't even know what part we were discussing. So nothing really much happens at the lab, like we said, except for the hurling crap at Visitor 3 scene. And you know what? I kind of expected him to have a comeback later in the book, and maybe this devolving into a everybody battles Visitor 3's, Morph of the Week. But we haven't seen those for a while.
Alien poop fight.
Yeah, maybe. I'd like to see that. But we don't even get that. No more Visitor 3 after his little freak out and everybody escapes from the lab in one piece.
Oh, real quick, I do want to touch on the fact that Visitor 3 cut off a guy's hand and then handed it back to him.
That was kind of cool. That they're getting a little bit more creative with his torture methods
Yeah.
And I like that we're starting to see like his employees, the actual Yerks, like the guy in the lab at the end here, who are just straight up like, nope, screw this guy. Like we're lying to him just to appease him so he doesn't kill us.
Yeah, and even those people are horrible, horrible people. But no, let's move on. So now the whole setup is they know they have to get into the slaughterhouse. They scout out the slaughterhouse. They realize it doesn't have one of these shields, but it does have a GLEAT bio.
Yeah, we get some more GLEAT action.
Yeah.
I like that they're bringing it back. They're bringing it up from previous books.
Yeah, it plays a big part in the ending of the series, and I like that it's more part of the the Yerk's plans because they know these Animorphs, they're gonna get in somehow. So that was smart. And so in their scouting, and they realize that okay, there's all these cows, steers. They make a really big point in this book to teach us about cows and their multiple names.
How else would we know?
It's true, I guess.
Google didn't exist, or was very rudimentary.
It does.
Ask Jeeves didn't work. He didn't know.
It does lead to some good, clever things they do with the fact that like they didn't know being two bulls would be a problem. So you're learning and you're getting good plot out of it at the same time.
Well, and that's the cool morph lore bit of it.
Yeah, that's true. And they come up with this plan, like I said, looking at all the cows and who's being taken where, and it is kind of complicated in the sense that they have to get cows that are tagged, and they have to get the right tags, and they got to make sure they get the right morphs. There's when they actually try to do it, it's more complicated than they thought because a bunch of drunken college guys show up.
Yeah, I loved the nod or the mention to cow tipping as well, and that they actually portrayed them as drunks specifically.
Oh, they talk about them being drunk. I thought that was nice. For this series, I don't think they would.
It could have been a more of a 90s like built-in PSA message there as well, but
yeah, and I like that Rachel's like, screw these jerks, they were driving, like that's
it was funny how she's like
cut off their heads.
Cut off their heads, and Axe is like, should I?
That was one of the funniest jokes in this book, is just her nonchalantly telling Axe to straight up murder them.
I know that felt very I don't even know.
Teenager.
It felt good. Yeah, it was
something a real teenager would joke about. So I'm all for it. And so they have some problems with that. And then once they actually get there and they're trying to implement their plan, they realize that they've got two bulls, and that's not going to work because they're just fighting with each other. And you get your normal mishaps. But I thought all handled exceedingly well. And we get back. Oh, I love the fact that once they take out the two drivers of the truck because the drivers realize that they're bulls and they wouldn't take them to the slaughterhouse.
Right, their plan immediately goes awry. Like,
yeah.
It's nice to see that they can still like try and form plans, but they're still gonna go wrong.
Yeah, these are pretty experienced Animorphs at this point, but we get a great callback to Megamorphs #1 with them talking about Marco destroying Cassie's dad truck.
Oh, because of course he's nominated as the driver of the group now because of this one incident that happened books ago.
I mean, it's great. They don't reference. I don't feel like the books reference other books very often.
They need to more. In fact, yeah, they talk about major characters and events, I guess.
Yeah,
but not specific incidences from books.
But Cassie saying her dad cried because Marco trashed her truck when there was a tornado monster after him. I mean, that's great. That's great stuff.
Yeah.
And so
Good
Marco has to
callback.
go. He has to morph gorilla so he can drive it because he can't reach the pedals. You get some wacky, awesome scenes here, and Jake plays his role really well, where he's just like talking to the guy who's like calling Marco a bad driver, and Jake's just like, "Look, just check this manifest. We got to go, man."
I will say that I think the morph lore. #morphlore, guys, is expanded even a little bit more because Marco has to pull off the delicate maneuver of morphing only slightly enough to fool somebody, like in the face or in his head, which he did here. And they breeze over it very quickly, but I feel like in a longer formatted TV series format, this is something you could show in more detail about them, like practicing maybe doing half morphs or something. That would be a cool little instance where it shows it's paid off, and Marco can do that.
Yeah, it's a nice nod to the fact that they are more experienced. They're coming into their powers. They're not just terrible at this. So they get into the slaughterhouse, and then this is where the book really starts. I mean, as far as like, what we care about and what's leading to.
Yeah, exactly. This is what we wanted to see the whole time. And right away, I think we're given a very apt description of like the cows flying through the air and the chains being applied.
And I love Axe brings us back to his discussion on sentience. So the whole sentience subplot isn't just like a random message thrown throughout the book. He's attributed to these cows, and he's like, if these were just even a little bit smarter, they would see the cows being hung above them. They would smell the blood. They would do all this.
Yeah, and they would
try to
run
fight back. Yeah, they would do something. And the fact that they attributed to that and they brought that up, I thought that was more hammering the point home that this is not right what we do, to an extent.
Well,
I'm the biggest meat eater of anybody. I'm not a vegetarian, but
me too. But the point that he brought up, in my mind at least, is questioning like, well, maybe cows are sentient, but they just realize that this is like their way of life. Like, cows would know, obviously, that the cows that are taken away don't ever come back after they're sent off. So wherever they're going, they would probably, at least at some level in their species, understand that this is the end.
Yeah, and it almost goes against its morality there. I mean, that might have been a note from the publisher being like, "Hey, let's pull back on this whole slaughterhouse scene."
A bit on the nose here, guys.
Yeah, and they were like, "Can't you throw in a line where like it says that the cows are okay with it?" They're like, "Okay, sure."
Yeah, but maybe they're all down with that.
But that's fine. It is great that Axe has that intellectual discussion with himself right before the next few seconds, where he moves forward in the line and he just pisses himself in terror. I mean, this is one of the best scenes I think written in the series.
This was one thing that I was wondering going into the slaughterhouse. I was wondering, what elements they're going to show. We got to see the cows actually being hung up. We didn't get to see or hear about, like the slitting of the cutting, anything that happens there, the draining. But they did keep the bolt gun, which I think is one of the bigger, most frightening elements, and it's used so perfectly in this scene because Axe is a poor little cow in line about to get a bolt to the head and just be dead.
It doesn't shy away from it either. It doesn't say like, and then I heard something and I knew what happened. No, it says he put the gun up to the cow's head, and there
was a hole in the head, and they fell to the ground. And then the chains were applied, and they flew away. Yeah.
And how much better is it that this, like we've talked before about, especially last episode, about how some books would be better if they were told from another character's perspective. But how great is it from an Andalite's perspective that went up the evolutionary trail of a herd animal that he's the one we're seeing this from? Like, that's good writing.
Exactly. Yeah, Axe is very much like if cows had evolved instead of chimpanzees to become the humanesque life form.
Yeah.
Very good point. Very good point. It is like having a sentient cow almost dragged to his death.
And when he gets in there, and I don't know how, I think he was not morphing super fast at the end when he was panicking, and he was actually in the... when the gate comes in and like kind of locks him into place. I think it says he was morphing. He was desperately trying to morph, but there's a guy right there, and it doesn't say the guy got scared that he was like changing everything. I bet Axe was telling himself to morph, and he was so panicked. Maybe a couple little things were changing, but he wasn't morphing at all for the most part. I think he was just in such a frightened state. He didn't, he was barely even attempting to get out of the situation.
Sure, because it wasn't a danger like that they were even necessarily used to facing.
It was too real. I mean, I think even for the characters in these books, I mean, if you were to say they were real people doing these real things and aliens were part of their lives, I bet it's easier to go up against a Hork-Bajir in a fight with your cool tiger morph. I bet it's easier to wrap your head around that than to be in a slaughterhouse about to get a bolt through your head. And how quick it is. Like, there's no... Like, it builds suspense right here, but there's like 2 cows ahead of them, and they're dead in seconds.
Yeah, exactly. There's no time.
It makes it scary.
Exactly. That's what made it so tense, is he says he's trying to back up, but he can't. He's just being pushed forward, and the cows...
Shocked forward, too.
Oh, yeah. They come forward and tase him several times for trying to resist. It's like... this is powerful stuff, really. If you, as adults, going back and re-examining it, powerful, hard-hitting stuff.
This scene, I know this is the scene that Applegate's talked about fighting for, keeping this as close to this as possible. I wouldn't be surprised if Applegate actually wrote this scene herself and refused to let the ghostwriter write it.
Possibly. It was very, like I said, powerful, and who knows, because they had a lot of input on the outlines of the stories and how they should go. And I have a theory that I imagine that most of their ideas or plots are built around these kind of moments where they said, okay, we got to get these kids into a slaughterhouse for a mission, because we got to have this cool moment where, Axe is a cow about to be slaughtered. And the books are probably built around that central idea.
But kudos to the ghostwriter for getting us to that point, even if she didn't write this. I mean, this whole book is exceedingly well written, and the rest of it wouldn't worked if parts of it didn't lead naturally into this scene. Like, this could have been a hokey don't kill cows book, go vegetarian book. And they've had books like that in the past, where it shoves this message down your throat. This is how it should be done.
Oh yeah, show it from the animal's perspective, and then that's all people need to make up their mind.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to continue eating beef, but this is something that will stick with me in the back of my head for, a long time, I presume, because messages like this resonate with me.
People joke about the ending, and we'll get to that, but I actually think the ending really works at the end of a book like this, and we'll get to that. But let's move forward.
Sure. Not much else happens really after. I mean, this is a great scene and all, but once they're all de and remorphed, it turns into kind of a fight, let's get to the twist kind of part.
And they're backed up against the corner. Visitor 3, of course, shows up, and you think it's going to be a normal fight until they get through that door. And I like little things like it was really hard for them to get through that door. So that makes it believable that it takes a while for the Yeerks to get through. Little things like that I think are smartly written.
Well, they mention at one point, I think it's because they're just humans trying to get through the door, but they mention they're going to get some Draken beams up here real quick and get this door open. So it's like they're just waiting on the Draken beams.
Pretty much. But once they get into this lab, then we get this great twist. You've read the book. I mean, it's the fact that they find out what this is all about, what the Yeerks are trying to do. And it's very scary when it's first explained that, we just released this virus or this, whatever it is, this poison.
Sure, and it takes away your free will, takes away your sentience, and just makes you docile and not care. And then presumably it's like, well, do the effects wear off after time? Because otherwise they wouldn't be very good host bodies if you get in and you can't move them or anything.
Well,
unless it's a mental condition.
No. The not moving is the cryostasis that Axe was talking about. They couldn't move because they were in a state of stasis. It was like an energy.
Okay, yeah, he mentioned that as well.
The free will virus.
It's not like they're just sitting in cages behind bars, like.
No, they're like standing
vacantly.
I assume it's like really eerie. Like they're like standing straight up and can't move and are just like blank faced. But what the free will thing would have done was just make them completely peaceful hosts. They would not fight back. They would not make their own decisions.
Well, they wouldn't have internal thoughts or internal dialogues. There wouldn't be another character there to debate with the Yeerk. It would simply be... But, on the flip side, they wouldn't get any memories. They wouldn't get experiences. They wouldn't be better controllers, really.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, a big part of the Yeerk...
They'd be hugely flawed.
Yeah, one of the big things that the Yeerk's advantage is when they take over a new species, they gain that technology, they gain those experiences. You're right, but I think with humans, how they're explained in Visor, when they're talking about different host bodies, humans are just the perfect tool. Our hands, our balance, our depth perception. These are things that just make us great bodies, and I think they would have been fine with us just being bodies and not technological experience.
These new kind of controllers that they theoretically would be making here would be good for after the invasion is over and is a success. They're not useful for helping them to blend in and infiltrate because they won't get the memories or experiences.
And so after they see this and then explain to them, I think this is one of the great Cassie moments. And we're going to get a lot more in the next book. I can't wait for the next book. But this is one of the Cassie moments I wish I would have known about because I didn't read this book before. And it's amazing. Specifically to me, I don't know if it was as much to you, but the fact that Cassie is fighting that, no, this is not possible. Our free will cannot be taken away with a drug. And I think with this scene, you can disagree with me if you'd like. I'd like to hear your thinking on it. But I think this scene is 2 words away from becoming a totally different scene if Cassie would have taken it to the level of talking about a soul. Because I think that's what she was implying, but they didn't want to outright say it. And the fact that
I did not pick up on that while reading this, and I did not get that vibe either.
I got the vibe from it for this. Just hear me out. I got the vibe from it because she's smart. Cassie's a smart girl. If there was a part of our brain that controlled free will, which it doesn't, it's just a collection of memory and synapses that allow us to make decisions on things. Those things could be turned off. If you turn off enough of the brain, you would lose free will. So that's possible. That's scientifically possible that you could figure that out, possibly. So in that instance, I really think Cassie's fighting for the idea that there's more to humans than just our biology. I think that's where the book was going, but I don't think Scholastic would have really allowed it or really let it get into the fact that I know it's...
Cassie is a young Christian woman, and she will bring her Bible into the plot.
Listen. Take away the religious aspect of it. I think there's plenty of people on the planet who at least have the idea or would have the hope that there's more to humans than just our biology. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not trying to push my thoughts down on our listeners, but I'm just saying I think that's a regular human concept to hope that there's more to us than just our biology. And I feel like that's what the scene was getting at. And what Cassie's point was, is that, no, you can't turn that off. I refuse to believe that.
Okay, well, I took it to mean more of she just believed that, people are people. You can't turn people off, so to speak.
But you're saying the same thing I am. You're saying that there's...
I'm not attributing it to a soul.
Not necessarily a soul, but attributing it to something more
you said
than
soul.
we know.
I know a thing or two about souls. I read about souls in my other story.
In your other story?
My story.
The one you wrote?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. See, you believe in a soul. You're good.
Because anytime anybody writes a fictional story, that means they believe in it.
There's a little party somewhere that believes in all of that stuff.
Hey, there's a party somewhere that believes that Donald Trump might be a controller.
Animorphs. We're having the discussion there.
It's a wonderful discussion.
No, but anyway, I got that reading from it. I could understand not thinking that's real, but I liked the character for my own beliefs. I liked the character fighting for, no, this is not something that can be shut off. There's more to us than just can be seen or taken apart in an autopsy. Well,
it's just a great Cassie scene in general because, you pointed out the parallels, how earlier she was the one to fight for the chimps' rights, and now she's the one who's standing up for these humans as well, while both times Marco's the one who's like, screw these people, let's get out of here, let's cheese it. So it makes you like Cassie on a whole different level. Absolutely.
I just thought it was a great humanistic, it was a great, prideful moment to be a human and what she was saying. I don't know, it was a good scene we haven't really gotten from Cassie before in this kind of, tense moment where they could die. She's still fighting for this. It's
sure, but it's
what?
Kind of a cop-out that the whole experiment, as it were, was just a lie to please Visor 3. Because as soon as they let these humans out, the one guy's like, well, screw this, I'm out of here to Starbucks or whatever.
Well, no, I thought, so again, you have to take what I said as what the authors were intending. But I think this is a great scene in the sense that she was right. This thing was impossible. Even though it's what they were trying to do and what Visor demanded, you can't just take the human out of humans. You can't take the people out of people. I thought that was what the book was getting at. And if you see it from that perspective, it's not as much a cop-out.
Sure. And I saw it from the perspective of the Yeerks were trying to make a sedative, a human sedative, and distribute it to a wide population. A plot that I think could still work. They could try this. They could do it, in just one town, a small town somewhere, sedate all humans in the area, and have a huge, massive Yeerk force ready to move in and infest everyone overnight. They could do that. I think that would be an awesome book.
Well, it makes me wonder if Joss Whedon was an Animorphs fan when he was younger, because the movie Serenity does this exact same plot almost. With the government, they pick a planet and they decide to release not a sedative, but basically a chemical into the atmosphere.
Yeah,
makes the population less violent,
peaceful,
not less violent, but just less aggressive. Yeah, just more peaceful. And then 10%
and it made them too peaceful.
Yeah, everybody fell asleep where they were and just died of starvation and not doing anything. And then 10% of the population went crazy and turned into rapists, murderous,
Reavers. Yeah, it had the opposite effect. That was actually a really cool plot line. And I'd love to see the Animorphs version of it.
Yeah, it would work well as a Visser plot where he's like, okay, this didn't work, but we can almost do this if we do this. That would be a great plot.
I'd like to see that one.
Yeah.
But other than that,
they realize it's fake, yeah. They realize there's nothing happening, and this horrible control. I didn't even know if he was a controller at first, the scientist they talked to.
Yeah, he was very acting non-controllery for a sec.
Yeah, but once you learn he's a controller, he's still an absolutely evil person, even though he's trying to get them to help him. It's ridiculous. Which is great.
Was cool.
It shows the Yeerks many Yeerks are just inherently, this type of person.
Well, and I feel like it's been quite a while since we've had a really good, these characters to controller interaction,
Yeah, no, you're right. But
not since Tobias's cousin came to town have we seen the team interacting with a controller in such a way.
Yeah. But after this, they go home, they wrap it up.
It had a very quick wrap up.
It did. They did touch again on the sentience of chimpanzees, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. Axe continuously calls back to it. Very nice that they give some consideration to it.
He's talking to somebody at the end about that. Yeah, it's with someone. Hold on.
Marco? I don't know.
Oh, no, he's talking about it. It's with the scientist.
Yeah, exactly.
He's asking the guy if the formula worked with the chimps, and that's how he would judge its sentience. But the guy says he doesn't know. He can't tell if it worked because they were sentient or because they weren't.
You said your formula was ineffective because sentience cannot be separated from free will. So I must ask: did the formula work on the chimpanzees? Are they in fact sentient? The chimpanzees, the formula had no effect. But was it because their will remained unaffected, or merely because there was no free will to affect? We do not know. I know, said Cassie.
Yeah. It's just a nice callback to the whole question in that book with everything with them. So
yeah. Oh, and the last chapter, the end of this book is just them sitting around in the mall talking about how pointless this whole adventure was and what a waste of time it was, and then enjoying some burgers. It literally,
and then they all want burgers.
It couldn't be more on the nose, about what the authors are trying to say here.
Well, it's good though, because everybody, like I said, everybody jokes about this scene and how, it's supposed to have this vegetarian message, but then they're all eating burgers and laughing at the end. But that's us. We are omnivores. We do eat meat. And we can say that the process for getting this meat is horrifying at the same time as saying that, yes, we're going to continue to eat meat. That's where I think people go too far. Everybody feels like they need to pick a side and stick wholeheartedly to that side. No, we can. I thought it was great that throughout this entire book, Axe was talking about how he was a herd animal, he evolved from a herd animal, and that humans are hunters. That's our background. That's where we come from. That's a part of us, and I don't think it's right to deny that part. But we could be way, way, way more humane in how we do these things.
Certainly.
So that's what I thought the real point of this book was. And this last scene's great, and that Marco's doing it for shock value, but he's making a point too that, I'm not gonna stop eating burgers because of it.
Totally. And most of them join in with him. Even Axe. Or so it seems.
That is. So we didn't see him eat it. No.
I don't doubt that they set the burger down in front of him and let him go to town.
Yeah, so that's book 28. I think we should get into our reviews, and I don't mind going first since I usually go last. So
do you? Okay, go to it. Get to it.
I usually do. I'm like, I want to keep my review as like this cool thing everybody's waiting for, but no, I'll just go with it.
Nobody's waiting for it. Get on with it.
So yeah, I loved this book. It was such a shock reading the last book and then reading this one. And this is what we're going to get with the ghostwritten books. I mean, we should have known that's how it's going to be, so black and white with reading the good ones versus the other. I'm sure we'll get to some meh books as well. But the last one was so bad in my eyes. And then getting to this one, the biggest changes were this is a competent writer who is not only making us laugh, but understands plotting and how to make us tense, how to make us, get excited for where the story is going. I mean, I read this book in 2 sittings over the last, 19 hours, and I was excited to get to the end. I thought it was great, and I've been wrestling with myself on my score. I'm going to keep this short. I've been wrestling with myself on the score, but because it's really, really good. But it has nothing to do with the overall plot of the series. We don't get more mythology. # more floor. We do get a bit of that. But, that's, to me, that screams 4 out of 5. But with Marco and Cassie and Axe, what we learn about them, who they are, having some of the best aspects of their characters come out in a incredibly realistic way in this book. I was excited. I was excited by being an Animorphs fan, and this book is everything I want out of this series, easily. And I don't think this is the best filler book. I think this is one of the best books we've read so far, period, from Applegate or otherwise. So to me, I can't not give this a 5 out of 5.
Nonsense.
Hanging Andalite corpses.
Nonsense.
5 out of 5.
You
okay?
You
fine.
Even admitted to yourself it's 4 out of 5 worthy.
It should be. No, it should
you're just keeping that 5 out of 5 to go back on what we'd said on the phone because
no.
You told me it was going to be a 5. Gosh darn it.
Yeah, and you said you were gonna bring me down, and you didn't. You agreed with most of my points.
No, I totally brought you down because you said I feel this is a 5 book, and then on the phone, and just now you admitted, nope, it's a 4 out of 5. Really?
No, I admit it should be a 4 out of 5 because it does not add to the mythology. In my mind, in my internal rating system, if a book is not important to the overall arcing plot line of the Yeerk invasion, then it shouldn't get a highest score. But I can't not give a book this well written that made me think so much and made me care about these characters I already care about more. I can't not give that a 5. It's an incredible.
Oh, okay. Well,
underrated ones.
Here's how we're gonna do this then. You already know my score. It's 4 out of 5, and I'll just tell you why it's 4 out of 5. Because, like you said, it's a wonderful book. It's a great effort. Good job, guys, on this one for real. If you haven't read this, read it if you want some Animorphs fun. That said, I am reserving the 5 out of 5s for the must reads of the canonical series. Okay. That's reserved in my mind. This one, as enjoyable as it was, is not necessary to the overall reading experience. Unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say, because you even pointed out things that I'd glossed over, a lot of things that are just very smartly hidden within this book. And as much as I enjoyed them, as much as looking back on it, I realize how smart they were. It's still just, it's kind of a failure of a book in that it's not one that really gets the fan base excited to talk about. Like I mentioned previously, I do think that this was a plot that was centered around the whole idea of getting one of the characters to be a cow in line at slaughter. I think that was the central core idea, and you can really feel that in the way that this book is marketed. Like I said, they could have very easily strapped a chimpanzee on the front of this thing, but they knew what they were doing. They chose cow because they wanted to stress that that's the most memorable point of this book, and that's how these things are really marketed. I realize now is towards the most memorable point, and that's why the back description includes the twist, because they want you to have the most memorable impact. Really, looking back on these things, nobody's going to remember the daring escape that took place trying to break into the chimpanzee truck. Nobody remembers that because it's not incorporated on the book. It's not incorporated in the back of the book. That's all stuff to get us to these most memorable points. And I think that's just where this book falls a little short, is that it's a fantastic effort. Like you said, one of the best instances of writing. Some of the most great moments we've had with some of these characters happen in this book. Cassie's at her strongest. Marco's at his most dickish. Axe is at his by far most entertaining because he's learning more about human culture, the wrong aspects of it, and it's great. But it all falls a little short in that it is quickly swept under the rug and discarded and laughed about in the final chapter. And it's really unfortunate. I would love to see what K.A. Applegate could do now, unrestrained, without Scholastic's input, what kind of message they would send about the meat packing industry and where it's gone. That's the interesting plot I would like to see, my friend, and that is why this gets a 4 out of 5. So I guess I 4 out of 5. Shit, I didn't think about this beforehand. 4 out of 5.
Say it.
4 out of.
There you go.
Oh, okay, that's a good one. 4 out of 5 feces-covered visitors. I would have. Just to talk about this a little more. I'm with you. I agree with you that it wasn't a hard rule, but I had an arbitrary understanding with myself that I would not give 5 out of 5 to books that don't add to the mythology or add to the overall canon, or like you said, aren't super important books of the series. But I think that says something. What are we reviewing these books for if not to talk about the individual books? And in my mind, even though I had the same rule as you in my mind that if it doesn't add to this, it can't get a 5 out of 5, but I enjoyed this book so much, and this was so much a culmination of the best parts of the series and why this series is important to me that I threw my rules out the window to give it a 5 out of 5 because that's how good this book is. Remember. It's a great filler book.
Yeah, I don't want to call it a filler book. It's a great Animorphs book. It's a great Animorphs book. And anything that gives us more floor. Yeah, #moreflore. But look at this. They bring up Buffy in this book. They bring up Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, sure. It's super easy for them to always bring up 90s pop culture references. I mean, that gets less of a pass for me.
No, listen. The whole reason I say that, bring it up, is the fact that like Buffy or like X-Files, these are TV shows that started out very monster of the week, and they build into an overall mythology. But we love those TV shows for their one-off episodes. Even like something like Avatar: The Last Airbender had these one-off episodes that didn't matter to taking down Fire Lord Ozo or anything, but like episodes that were endearing or made us cry, or they're one-offs, they're filler, like you said, but they're important and great. And I think this is one of those books. You could call it filler, not pushing the story forward, whatever. This book is great, and it deserves a 5 out of 5.
This book is great, but
dropping my mic if it wasn't connected to a robot arm.
Just swing the arm around. Very entertaining book. I mean, I loved it. I really did. I flew through this thing so much quicker than I have been able to with some of these books lately, especially the last one. And it felt like it went by quickly because I was enjoying most of every minute of it. Just because Axe's internal thought processing is so much more entertaining than just a regular person's, unless maybe it's Marco. So, Axe books are always going to be a treat for us, I think. It's actually very hard to imagine not giving an Axe book a 5.
Yeah, and yet you just did for some reason. So,
well, I'm trying not to be biased. Too biased.
Whoa! I like that. That was nice. Anyway, so let's wrap it up. This is a long episode. I don't know how it got so long, but
it's a good one though.
We both enjoyed this book, no matter what we gave it. We do think you should read it. And, if you're skipping a lot of ghost-written books, you should land on this one.
In our hearts, it's a 5 for both of us.
In my heart and mind and mouth, what I said. But
that's a pretty good one.
Speaking of mouths, one of the best lines in this book was Axe describing what mouths are for, and he's like eating, belching, vomiting,
kissing.
Going through a list of things people do with their mouths. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cold and hard fact.
All of his observations on humans, hilarious. I do want to say though that the next book we're getting into, I'm so freaking pumped for because it's one that I haven't read before. It's one that I wasn't even aware was a plot until like 2 years ago or something. Whenever we were collecting these books, and I got it and read it, and I was like, "Whoa, that's a plot! Awesome! Mm-hmm. That sounds like something we would say. Oh, I want that book."
The next one is a great book, and it adds a little to our mythology, so it does what this book doesn't. It does add a little bit to the mythology. We learn more about Andalites. We see Cassie at her best. This is one of the best Cassie books, easily the one coming up.
Oh yeah, and then after that we get Megamorphs number 3. So that's how we're doing it.
Great as well. Yeah.
We're okay.
We're gonna get into some time travel discussions with that one.
Awesome.
Good.
It's going to be some good fun stuff next time.
I think, honestly, because they were allowed to die in horrible ways and come back later, I think Megamorphs number 3 has the goriest scenes in the entire series.
Really? Well, yeah, I read it once, and I remember it being very dark, so I can't wait for that one.
Incredibly dark.
And I am ready to get down with the sickness. Oh, yeah. Ooh,
We got some good... We got some good episodes of Thoughtspeak coming up, so stay with us. Hopefully, we'll be putting them out a lot quicker, and we might have some surprises in stores. Maybe a new co-host to try out, see if he sticks around. We'll see. Just stick with us, and
you don't have to be so nerdy about it. You can just say, "Hey guys, we're not sure what's happening on the next episode of Thoughtspeak. We're going to try and get it out before this Christmas New Year's break." And there might be some new things happening. There might not. We don't know. We're pretty sure things might be changing. But
said what I just said in a calmer tone.
Yeah, I have a way of breaking news to people that I think is a little bit more subtle than you. So I just wanted to do it my way.
Voice, I'll give you that.
You can listen to Coleman's diatribe, and you can listen to mine, and you can judge who's more adequately preparing you for what's going to happen on the next episode of Thoughtspeak, which is to say, we're not entirely sure. That's it. But we might have a new co-host.
We're excited.
Who knows?
But we're excited about the prospects and the changes and things that are happening with our podcast. So stick with us. Jump on iTunes.
See, diatribe. We say stuff like that every episode.
Also, if you haven't been online in a while, we do have a Twitter. We do have a Facebook. Search at Morphcast for Twitter and just Thoughtspeak on Facebook. You'll find us pretty quickly. And we're always hanging out on our Animorphs, joining those discussions as
exactly. I wanted to read some stuff, but we're running a little longer than we had anticipated this time for once, and we just want to collect a bunch of funny stuff to read in the next episode. So tweet at us or Reddit us or whatever. Get a hold of us. We like reading stuff. More reviews on iTunes,
you guys. Yeah, we appreciate you guys. We love that you've stuck with us, even though we've had crazy schedules. And we can't wait to put out more of this stuff. And, I mean, we're getting into it. We're a little more than halfway through the series now. So, you know, this is happening, and you should get on board. So,
it's happening. Morph Train.
Anyway. Hashtag Morph Train, hashtag More Floor. Those are the numbers. So, yeah, thanks for hanging out with us. Can't wait to talk about the next book. We'll see you next time for The Sickness. I've been Coleman.
I have been and still am Mitchell. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.